Hello and welcome to Practical Wisdom with Ben Bessett. My name is Brandt Barnard. On this episode, we'll be looking at where do we start?
Where do we start regarding if somebody is coming to us, they want to sit down, they want to talk. A lot of people, when they hear the word counseling, they think they have to have all of the answers on the tip of their tongue and they have to be ready for anything that comes. So people can get kind of nervous as to what do I do? So the first thing that we should think about when we're sitting down with somebody, relationships are key. So the first thing we want to do is build trust. So when we sit down with somebody, we want to be genuine. We want to be transparent. We want to show concern. We want to listen well. Show the person that you're actually listening to what they're saying. A lot of times the first reaction we have when we sit down with somebody is we want to fix the problem. So we will be saying answers to the problems that they're laying out. And it isn't as though they haven't thought of that. They just want somebody at that moment to sit down and listen and to hear. And we want to listen because we don't have all of the answers. We don't have all of the information. So it's a very crucial step. And the first thing that we do is that we are showing that we are listening and that we're caring and that we're concerned. So what this does then is the person sees this and it allows for vulnerability to come in play. Person knows that you're listening and that you're caring and that you're genuine about what you're doing. They're going to drop their guard. They're going to come to you and they're going to be a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more open as that relationship builds. And it's important on our end too when we sit down with somebody to be vulnerable back, not to create that dynamic that we're here and the person is below us, that we're the sage, that we have all of the answers, but that we're coming alongside of somebody who we have struggled in like manners in the past, maybe not specifically what they're struggling with, but we've had our own issues that we've dealt with. Mm-hmm. So when we're coming alongside somebody and building that relationship, what we're showing them is we are two co-equals coming together to fix a problem. Opens up the person a little bit more. It allows now for maybe not the first time, maybe not the second time, but over a period of time, we have different levels within us that we're comfortable with sharing. And the more of a relationship that is built and the more of the trust bond that is formed within a person, they get a little bit more comfortable. Okay, you know what? I said this was the problem and yeah, that's true, but there's more to it than that. And then it goes to a deeper level. But this cannot be reached unless relationships are built.
Yeah, it reminds me of the proverb also that we need to be open to listening because whoever gives an answer first before listening, it's their folly, right?
Right. And that's a tendency we all have.
Yeah.
We hear what the person is saying. We think back and be like, okay, I've done this before, or I've dealt with this before, in the sense that this isn't new, but it is new in a sense that this person's specifics are new. The problem may not be new, but what they're dealing with and how they're dealing with, that is new to us. So what this does is it takes away that tension of being uneasy. If you're not comfortable with somebody, you're not going to share your heart to somebody. It's just that simple. So that does this. So then after that relationship is built, the next step is the entry gate. Now what we mean by the entry gate is what is the person, what are they communicating to us? Not necessarily all of the facts and the details, but their experience of what they're sharing with you. We may view it as something small, but their experience of it is big. Or it may be something big, but their experience of it is small. Either way, we want to listen to the experience of how the person is explaining this to us. In a sense, what is their struggle at that moment? Now, you may see that they're sweating. You may see that they're breathing heavy. You may see that they're talking a mile a minute. So then you can interpret that as anxiety, stress, worry. They're uncomfortable right now. This week I was talking with a guy, and as he was sharing his experiences with me, I could just see his face turning bright red, and then all of a sudden tears started to come out. So I said, hey, let's back up. I said, we don't have to talk about this. Let's talk about how you have progressed in this problem and you have progressed in this area. So I hear what you're saying as to where you were coming from and what you've experienced, but how have things been better for you? What have you done? And then as he was explaining to me, okay, well, this has happened and this has happened, his face started to light up. So his experience of his anxiety and what he's been through in life really weighs him down, and he's really convicted by it. So we have to make sure that if we are touching a soft point, that we approach it gently. So in these areas, the entry gate is important, but our approach has to be with caution.
Can you think of any examples of how Christ unpacked when he confronted somebody or was speaking with somebody, and how he listened to them or spoke to them or pulled these things out?
Well, sure, the classic example would be the woman at the well. in John 4 where Jesus meets her, and she's a Samaritan and he's Jewish, so there's that tension. And then she's female, so then you have the way Jewish men viewed Samaritan women at that time. They're very condescending, but you don't see any of that with Jesus. You see Jesus coming alongside of somebody, asking her questions, and when he was asking her questions, he was drawing her out. You could see in the first part of John 4, she's very distant from him, and then later as the conversation develops, she becomes more comfortable with him. And once she becomes more comfortable with him, then Jesus opens the door to the problem. He says, you've had 5 husbands and the one you're living with now is not your husband. But he didn't do this in a finger-pointing, fiery judgment way. He had developed that rapport with her first, and then when she had opened up, then the sin gets exposed. So we have to be gentle in our approach, not to come at somebody in a judgmental, self-righteous manner, because you're going to lose the relationship. They're going to shut down. It's over at that point. But if you're showing that you're listening and that you're caring and that you're compassionate, and then you bring out the problem, okay, so the problem is this, right? And then they're like, yeah, that's what I'm dealing with. So you're taking the problem and you're setting it aside from the person, and you're both looking at the problem together, but you're being honest about it. You're not trying to go around or cut corners, but you're confronting it in a very gentle manner.
So is it kind of like somebody comes to you with a suitcase just full of stuff, and you're just kind of listening to them unpack and just take all this stuff out, and you're like, okay, right, let's figure out what's going on here.
Right, and it's not so much that you're focused on all the details at first.
Yeah,
you're listening to how they're interpreting and how they've experienced what they're telling you. Okay. So you're hearing the person speak it. If you hear of war stories, Vietnam stories, you can hear 2 people explain it in 2 different ways as to how they experienced it. One person comes back in terror, and another person comes back as if this was just an incredible experience. So people interpret things different ways. So these are what we want to listen for when we're building that rapport with somebody. Is this is the problem? What is their understanding in it?
So just to wrap up on that too, when you're listening to them interpret their own experiences, at the same time, you as a Christian, you're listening. Okay, where is God in this? How does God's truth address this? Is that kind of what's going on?
And that's what we'll get into in the next one.
All right. Well, it's a great place to stop.
Great place to stop.
Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of Practical Wisdom with Ben Bessett. Look forward to having you next time.